Chapter 101. All right, I'll go and take a look at some cars now. Boss, please be careful. Yes, I will. After hanging up the phone, Orissa began busying herself in the kitchen. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Sean was kept busy as well. After taking care of the problematic people, the results just so happened to be out. Sean printed out a copy and took a look at it. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How is it? Benjamin was anxious. He had been staring at the machine the whole time, waiting for the results. Sean, still in shock, handed the copy of the results to him. Benjamin took the paper and glanced through the results. He completely ignored all the data analyses written on it and skipped straight to the final conclusive result. The DNA results showed a 99.99% match. This means they are related by blood. Benjamin's eyes narrowed, a cold glint flashing through them. Orissa was really Gavin's biological mother. An unfamiliar feeling rose in his heart. No wonder she had that sweet scent on her. With the report in hand, Benjamin turned around and strode out. Huh, what, who's the woman? Sean hurriedly chased after him. Gavin's biological mother, Benjamin replied bluntly. Sean's lips twitched. I know she's his biological mother, but that's not what I'm asking. He wanted to know who that woman was. What's her name? Have you found her? How did you come to realize it? The inquisitive Sean interrogated while following closely behind him. Benjamin gave him an annoyed side eye. Stop following me. How could you mess up such important data? Sean was dumbstruck. How am I to know that someone would mess with the results? I was innocent. Benjamin, you're killing me here. I was the one who authenticated the results. Ignoring the doctor's words, Benjamin got in his car and rushed towards the company. He thought that Gavin would be there, but the bodyguard informed him that he was at Orissa's instead. He quickly hopped back in the car. Just as he was about to leave, he received a text from Gavin. Daddy, Mommy almost got kidnapped just now. You have to find out who did it. The person is at the police station now. Benjamin was livid that someone actually dared to touch her. His handsome face turned dark. He replied to Gavin, Okay, I got it. Be good over there. I'll come over later. Then, he phoned Ethan, asking him to come down. Mr. Graham. Ethan had no idea why Benjamin had summoned him. Get in the car. Ethan was astounded by the dark clouds seemingly looming over Benjamin's head. He turned to walk over to the passenger's seat. Hurry up. Benjamin's voice went up a few octaves as he called out. Ethan scurried into the car. It was a rare occurrence for him to be sitting in the passenger's seat. Usually, if it were the two of them, Ethan would always be the driver. Now that the roles were reversed, Ethan felt a little out of place. As soon as he got in, the car sped off. Mr. Graham, where are we going? Ethan noticed that something was off about Benjamin's mood, so he treaded lightly with his inquiry. The police station. Benjamin's eyes were glued on the road ahead. Someone tried to kidnap Orissa. He's already been caught. Make some calls. I want to meet this bastard. Ethan took in a sharp breath. Miss York was kidnapped. By who? Benjamin glared at the man through the rearview mirror. In a gloomy tone, he yelled, Make the call. Yes, sir. Ethan retracted his gaze and quickly made the arrangements. Benjamin's vehicle was zooming at lightning speed. In less than 10 minutes, he arrived at the police station. Everything had been arranged for him. The chief of the police station hurriedly went over to greet Benjamin. Mr. Graham, this way please. Benjamin and Ethan made their way into the interrogation room where the culprit sat. The chief asked all the people inside the room to leave. Mr. Graham, he's inside here. Benjamin nodded slightly. His charming face was shrouded with icy cold hostility. Chief Lambert, we'll take it from here, Ethan said with a smile. You guys. Todd Lambert was a little worried seeing the look on Benjamin's face. Don't worry, we'll hand him back to you. We won't hurt him, Ethan replied jauntily. Todd's doubtful eyes darted back and forth between the two men before he finally closed the door behind him. Sensing Benjamin's hostility, the man trembled in fear. This guy is definitely not here to help me. The frightened man gulped. Who are you? Chapter 102. A hint of murderous intent flashed across Benjamin's eyes. He sent the man flying with a kick. The thrust was so strong that the man hit the wall. Several ribs were instantly crushed upon impact. Soon after that, Benjamin brutally stomped on the man's face. "How dare you touch my girl? You've got some nerve." The deep and bloodthirsty voice coming over the man's head sent chills down his spine. I don't know you. Who the hell are you?" Benjamin applied more pressure on his foot upon hearing that. The man under his foot, whose facial expression was quite distorted at this point, could not help but wail, "Please spare my life." Sensing Benjamin's hostility, the man trembled in fear. Benjamin then exchanged a meaningful glance with Ethan and stepped aside. The latter walked over knowingly, squatted down, and patted the subdued on his face with the blunt end of a knife. "Now, tell me, who sent you? Who are you guys? I don't even know. I haven't got any business to do with you." Painful screeches echoed as the man's finger got cut off. He curled up in the corner as he held his wounded hand in his other one. Terror washed over his features as he looked at Ethan, who had a smirk on his face. After a brief deliberation, he asked sheepishly, "Is that woman part of your gang?" Ethan sneered, "I've never seen such an idiot kidnapper. It's true that you have no business with us, and she has no business with you. So, why did you make a move on her?" He smiled as he fidgeted with the knife. Ethan might appear friendly and easygoing, but he knew what needed to be done and when. "Tell me, why did you try to kidnap her?" "I don't know what you are talking about. You're taking the law into your own hands. I'll sue you," the man snapped as he floundered about. PFF'd. Ethan kept his weapon and rose to his feet. The man breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing that. Next thing he knew, he received an all-out kick from Ethan. Shrieks of pain immediately sounded from inside the interrogation room. Those standing outside were startled to hear that, but they quickly ignored the commotion inside. "Hey, stop, I'll talk," the man pleaded, wrapping his hands around his head. "We were tasked to kidnap her." "By whom?" The man shook his head. "I've never met him in person. He secured a deal with us online. That's all I know." Ethan pummeled the man a few more times, but the latter had nothing else to offer. "Come on, spill it. Why did you try to kidnap her?" That person wants her dead." When Benjamin heard that, he instantly cast a menacing glare at the man. Ethan lowered his body and grabbed the man by his collar. "How many of you are there? You better talk." Petrified, the man refused to go on as he vigorously shook his head. A few minutes passed before Ethan finally stopped beating up the man. He smoothed out the creases on his shirt. The battered man was left sprawling on the ground, unconscious. Nonetheless, his life was not in danger. Ethan had avoided all fatal points when he delivered every single blow. Ethan approached Benjamin and reported, "Mr. Graham, he's a stubborn one. Wake him up and get him to talk," Benjamin ordered, his eyes charging with terrifying malice. Yes, Ethan did as he was told. The interrogation continued. From time to time, bellows would sound from inside the interrogation room. Half an hour later, Benjamin exited the room with Ethan in tow. Walking away just like that, he exuded a cold aura from head to toe. No one dared to approach him. The chief turned toward them with a look of worry on his face. "He's all yours," Ethan told the chief. It was then that the chief breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly ordered his staff to get the man to the hospital. Ethan had a few lines with the chief before leaving. Benjamin was already in the car when Ethan got there. Ethan opened the door to the driver's seat and got in. "Mr. Graham, where next?" Benjamin lowered his gaze and replied in a low tone, "Orissa's place." Ethan's eyes lit up. Okay. With that, he started the engine and headed toward Orissa's residence. "I want to know everything about that man," Benjamin said. Peeking at Benjamin through the rearview mirror, Ethan responded, "Got it." No matter how hard we forced him to talk, he would not reveal anything about his organization. This is definitely not going to be easy. Chapter 103. Sweethearts. It's time for dinner. Orissa called out to her 5 children so that they could wash their hands before they eat. "Wow, Mommy has prepared us a feast." Standing on tiptoe, Jessie scanned the dishes on the table as she savored the aroma. Orissa chuckled at the sight. "Go on, wash your hands. Hee hee." With that, Jessie hurriedly did as she was told. Orissa went into the kitchen and brought out the last item on the menu, which happened to be the soup. She served her kids one bowl of soup each. The children got to the table. Zachary, Oliver, Jasper, and Jessie took their seats. "Mommy, can I sit with you?" Gavin asked, looking at Orissa in eager anticipation. She smiled. "Okay, come here." As Orissa placed the fifth bowl of soup in front of Gavin, she reminded all five of them, "Be careful. It's hot." The five kids remained in their seats obediently as they waited for their mother to serve her own portion. After that, Orissa sat down and said, "Bon appetit." The five kids smiled happily and repeated the phrase, "Bon appetit." Orissa beamed as she looked at her children. "Mommy, you've made a lot of delicious food. Is it for him?" Jasper took a sip of the soup and cast a curious look at Orissa before shifting his sight toward Gavin. Running her fingers over Gavin's hair, Orissa smiled at her three sons sitting opposite her. "It's for everyone." "Well, seeing that it's Gavin's first time here, of course I have to make more." Zachary and Oliver chuckled. "Mommy, Gavin isn't." Realizing that they had slipped up, the two immediately covered their mouths with both hands at the same time. "Isn't, what?" Orissa narrowed her eyes as she scrutinized the secretive trio. She turned to innocent little Jessie beside her. She seemed to know nothing as she drank the soup without a care in the world. Gavin snickered. "Mommy, the soup tastes good. I'm glad you like it. You can have more." Taking his empty bowl, Orissa got him a second serving. "Take it slowly. It's still hot." "Okay, thanks, Mommy." Gavin nodded as he dug in with delight. "Mommy's cooking is wonderful." Orissa caressed his head and filled his plate with more food. "Have some of these. Which one is your favorite? I can make more for you next time." "Mommy, your cooking is the best. I like all of them." The trio sitting opposite smirked upon witnessing Gavin buttering their mother up. Well, look at that. Gavin's usually acts cool, yet he becomes so affectionate in front of Mommy. Orissa grinned, gave Gavin a hug, and kissed him on the cheek. "Thank you, sweetheart." Gavin blushed. When he locked eyes with the trio, he quickly lowered his head as he ate. "Come on, all of you, dig in." With that, Orissa served the other four kids with food. "Thank you, Mommy." The four children expressed their gratitude. They love to be spoiled. "This one is nice. I like it." "Mommy, the steak tastes great." "Mommy, the chicken is delicious." "I like everything you cook, Mommy." As the five children devoured the food, Orissa's smile broadened. "Help yourself to the food, then. Go on, eat them all up." "Sure." The children nodded. Amid the excitement, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Orissa walked over to the door. Bradley must have come to visit. When she opened it, the visitor was not who she expected. Panicked, she slammed the door as her heart raced. "Oh my gosh, why is Benjamin here?" Her mouth twitched as she gazed at the children sitting at the dining table. "Oh, how could I forget that Gavin's here? Open the door." Benjamin's loud voice sounded from outside the door, sending a chill down Orissa's spine. Chapter 104. Irritation surged within Benjamin as he glared at the closed door. Does she not welcome me here? How dare she shut me out? Ethan, who was standing behind Benjamin, did not anticipate that Orissa would close the door just like that. He suppressed his laughter as he stood outside with Benjamin. "Open the door this instant." Benjamin shouted again, his face darkened. Leaning on her back against the door, Orissa patted her chest in an attempt to calm down. "Mr. Graham, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I'm wearing a nightgown. Please wait while I get changed." With that, she dashed toward the dining table. The children turned to look at her at the same time. Out of curiosity, Zachary asked, "Mommy, who's here? Why didn't you open the door?" At a loss, Orissa said to them, "Shish. It's Benjamin. I need you all to hide." Quickly, the five kids were rendered speechless. Oliver's eyes lit up. "Daddy's here." "Mommy, is it Daddy? Let him in and join us." Orissa's lips twitched. "As if I don't know what you are thinking about. Everyone, go hide. Gavin, you may continue eating." She admitted she didn't really know what she was doing. "I don't want to let him in, but he's already at the door." "The kids are here too. It would have been fine if they had eaten their fill and I was just sending them off, but the problem is they haven't finished their food. I can't just send Gavin out because the kids will be upset. She hurriedly hugged Jessie and told the others, quick. Go back to your room and wait. I'll tell you when he's gone, then you can come out and eat. Zachary was dumbfounded. Jasper complained, why is he here? Daddy's here to pick me up, Gavin said as he cast an apologetic look at the other kids. Hurry up, Orissa urged. At the same time, she quickly retrieved the children, bowls and stashed them in the room. The other 4 kids obeyed her instructions and entered the room. They looked at the randomly placed bowls. Some were half finished, while some were empty. This is mine. Jessie recognized her own bowl and took it. Then, she sat on the bed and began to eat. Meanwhile, Zachary, Oliver, and Jasper exchanged glances with one another. They proceeded to take their own bowls as well. Gavin is lucky. He can have all the food he wants. Jasper merely shoved pasta into his mouth, as he had no other food left in his bowl. Oliver smiled. Here, have some of mine. Shish. Don't talk. Keep your voices down, Zachary reminded them as he tried to make out the movement outside. Orissa hurriedly cleaned up all traces that the children might have been living here. Gavin saw her fretting and walked over to her. Mommy, don't panic. It's okay. I'm here. Deeply touched, Orissa pulled him into her embrace. Right. I've once told Benjamin that I have kids. Why am I so nervous? I didn't actually have to clean up the mess, did I? After regaining her composure, she managed to calm down a bit. Okay, back to dinner. She rubbed Gavin's forehead, and went to open the door. In the meantime, Benjamin's frown grew deeper. Just as he was about to lose his temper, the door opened. Orissa greeted him with a smile. Mr. Graham, please come in. Scrutinizing her grin and glancing at her work clothes, Benjamin sneered, didn't you say you were in a nightgown? Orissa gulped. Well, I was. Then I changed out of it. Yes. Perfect explanation, right? Ethan felt an urge to laugh. Oh, hello, Mr. Frank. You're here too. Quick, come in. Her warm welcome toward Ethan was in great contrast to her attitude toward Benjamin. The disparity did not escape the latter. His face fell. Benjamin looked at Ethan and said, you may go now. Ethan was dumbstruck. Glancing at Benjamin, Orissa was taken aback when she met his deep gaze. Yes, Mr. Graham. Ethan nodded. Miss York, I shall take my leave. Wait, Orissa called out to him, but then she realized Benjamin was staring at her. Close the door. Benjamin walked in and surveyed the entire house. The place was spotlessly clean and neatly arranged. There was a faint fragrance in the air. It was rather homely. Chapter 105. Daddy. Gavin ran over to his father excitedly. Benjamin embraced him and stroked his head. Are you having fun here? Yes. Mommy, Miss York has made me a lot of delicious food. I like all of them. The 4 children hiding inside the room smirked when they heard Gavin say that. Zachary murmured under his breath, how shameless. Benjamin's eyes lit up. He turned to face the woman standing idly at the door. Aren't you going to close the door? Orissa sighed and did just that before joining them. Mr. Graham, have a seat. Gavin's having his dinner. Let him finish his meal first. Then, you may bring him home. Benjamin narrowed his eyes. Can't she read the room and invite me to dinner? After all, I'm her boss. Well, I haven't eaten yet. Let me join you. With that, he carried Gavin in his arms and walked toward the dining table. Orissa was bewildered. Never had she imagined that Benjamin would invite himself just like that. Why, I invited you for dinner at my house last night. Won't you at least allow me stay for dinner tonight? Benjamin glanced at Orissa. Orissa smiled awkwardly at him. Of course I will. I'm just not sure if you like my cooking. She was actually scared that he would discover the 4 children hiding in the other room. Benjamin let out a light snort as he cast a glance at the food on the table. A lavish dinner indeed. Isn't this a little too much for just 2 people? Where are your kids? He asked as he put Gavin down and sat down on the master's seat. Orissa tucked her hair behind her ear. My friend took them to his house. They're staying there for a few days. Without uttering a word, Benjamin fixed his stare on her. As she met his deep eyes, her heart beat like a drum. "I'll get you the silverware." With that, she turned and walked away. Benjamin looked in her direction and then shifted his gaze toward Gavin. "Daddy, loosen up. You'll scare Mommy," Gavin muttered as he looked at Benjamin. Benjamin's frown only grew deeper. That rendered Gavin speechless. Benjamin noticed something amiss when he looked at the other seats at the table. The chairs are untidy and there are traces of food on the table, as though someone was there a minute ago. Mr. Graham, what would you like to have? Soup, or pasta?" Orissa asked as she came back with a set of clean silverware. "I'm fine with either." Benjamin stared at her. Avoiding eye contact, Orissa served him some pasta. "Hurry up, finish your food and leave." She smiled as she placed the bowl in front of him. "Enjoy your meal, Mr. Graham." Benjamin grabbed a fork and dug in. Sitting down beside Gavin, Orissa filled his plate with some food. "Let's eat." "Okay." Gavin's eyes narrowed in delight. "Daddy and Mommy are here. It'll be nice if my brothers are here too." Benjamin's brows loosened when he saw the smile on his son's face. "You made all these just for the two of you?" he asked casually. Stunned, Orissa grinned. "Believe it or not, I was expecting you. So, I made a little more than usual." Benjamin chuckled. "She sure knows how to butter someone up. She seemed reluctant to have me stay for dinner just now. She might have hoped I could wait in the living room." Pointing at a fish, Gavin went on, "Daddy, Mommy made this for you." Orissa's mouth twitched. "Sweetheart, that's for you." As a matter of fact, Benjamin and Gavin shared the same tastes. Benjamin knew that she had not prepared the dish for him, but he was happy to hear that coming from his son. "Let me have a taste." He peered at her, and then took a bite of the fish. "Not bad. You make a wonderful cook, Miss York." Orissa smiled awkwardly upon hearing his compliment. "I'm glad that you like it, Mr. Graham. Help yourself." His liking toward the fish was so strong that he barely touched the other dishes. In no time at all, he consumed the entire fish. Orissa gaped. "He's really making himself at home, isn't he? The kids have barely eaten anything." Chapter 106. It had been ages since Benjamin last had such a scrumptious home-cooked meal. He devoured the dishes with gusto. When Orissa saw him gobbling up the food, the corner of her mouth slightly twitched in dissatisfaction as she thought of her kids who were yet to be fed. She could not help stealing glances at the man. Benjamin had impeccable table manners and extremely graceful movement. Noticing Orissa's gaze on him, he glanced back at her. "What are you looking at?" At his question, Orissa smiled sheepishly. "Mr. Graham, what do you think of the food?" "They're okay," Benjamin replied curtly. Orissa's lips twitched again. "Just okay. You look like you'd die for them." "Mommy, the food is great," Gavin complimented with a huge grin. Flashing him a gratified smile, Orissa dotingly tousled his hair. She proceeded to put more food on his plate. "I'm glad you like them. You can have as much as you like." "Thanks, Mommy." Gavin thanked Orissa happily and ate some more. Benjamin did not like that Orissa was looking at Gavin with a tender gaze. "Do you have more pasta?" Orissa turned to him and replied, "Yes. I want another serving," Benjamin ordered. Twitching the corner of her lips, Orissa said, "They're in the pot." "You may help yourself, Mr. Graham." Sensing the impatience in her tone, Benjamin let out a snort and complained, "Is this how you treat your boss?" Amused by his question, Orissa responded, "Mr. Graham, we're off the clock now. I can do whatever I want when I'm not at work. Aren't you afraid that I'd fire you?" Benjamin glared at her. Orissa shot him a glance. As she met his intense gaze, she quickly averted her eyes. "Do as you wish. You're the boss anyway." At her reply, Benjamin knitted his brow. Is she really not afraid of being fired? Gavin looked between the both of them. He opened his mouth and said to Benjamin, "Daddy, Mommy was almost kidnapped, and she even had to prepare dinner after she came home. She must be tired. Can't you get it on your own?" Surprised that Gavin was taking Orissa's side, Benjamin hummed, "Are you hurt?" Orissa's heart skipped a beat when Benjamin actually expressed concern for her. Suppressing her excitement, she put on a calm facade and said, "I am fine." However, Benjamin noticed the bruise on her forehead right away. His handsome face darkened at that sight. He did not notice it earlier as the bruise had been concealed by her hair. Now that he saw it, he believed he had been too lenient toward the offender. Not knowing the reason behind the sudden change of his expression, Orissa dissed him in her thoughts. What a moody man. Nevertheless, she took his bowl and refilled it for him. Where else did you get hurt? Orissa looked at him. Nowhere. What's this, then? Suddenly, Benjamin reached out a hand and pressed on the wound on her forehead. Orissa instantly felt a stab of pain. She drew in a sharp breath and shrank away from his touch at once. Glowering at him, she complained, "What are you doing?" A hint of a smile flashed across Benjamin's eyes as he teased, "I thought you said you're not hurt." Orissa groaned. On the other hand, Gavin giggled inwardly before putting on a straight face and reprimanded Benjamin, "Daddy, you shouldn't do that. It's painful." She said it herself that she wasn't hurt, so I'm testing her out. Benjamin retorted. Orissa's mouth twitched slightly at his words. "Mr. Graham, why don't you finish up your food and bring Gavin home? It's late already. The kids are still waiting for dinner inside the room. Are you chasing me out?" Benjamin shot Orissa a glance. She seems nervous. The kids can't be home, can they? Orissa grinned sheepishly as she replied, "Of course not. I'm just saying that it won't look good if you stay too long in a subordinate's home. I'm fine with it, though." "Thanks for your concern," Benjamin snapped, curling her lips. Orissa turned to her food without uttering another word. For a long while, nobody spoke as they ingested the food. Chapter 107. Meanwhile, the kids inside the room exchanged glances, their bowls long empty. "I need to pee now," Jessie, who couldn't bear it any longer, declared to her brothers. "Hold it in for a little more while, okay." Jasper patted her head in a pacifying manner. Pouting in annoyance, Jessie complained, "Why is Daddy taking so long? When is he going to leave?" As they were not supposed to meet their father, Jess's only hope now was for him to leave as soon as possible so that she could go relieve herself. He should be going soon. Oliver tried to soothe Jessie as well. Clasping her belly, Jessie paced back and forth in the room uneasily. Seeing that she was at her wit's end, Zachary whispered, "Go pee at the balcony, then." Jessie was taken aback by his suggestion. She looked hesitant. "Right, just go pee at the balcony. We'll clean that up later." Then, Jasper leapt off the bed and led her to the balcony. "Hurry up," Jasper urged her as he stood guard at the entrance of the balcony, his back against her. Despite being afraid of darkness, Jessie steeled herself as she hastily peed at the drain hole in a corner of the balcony. After she was done, she hurriedly pulled up her pants as she looked around the space, afraid that someone might see her. Her face was blushing from embarrassment. "Jasper, I'm done." "All right. Come on in," Jasper whispered. After Jessie re-entered the room, Jasper and Oliver took turns to relieve themselves. They had too much soup earlier and had been resisting the urge for quite some time too. After that, the four children sat on the bed idly and waited some more. Holding onto the laptop, they silently monitored the surveillance footage of the trio having dinner outside. "Wow, it's Daddy," Jessie exclaimed in surprise as she saw Benjamin, who bore an uncanny resemblance to her brothers. Oliver covered her mouth immediately. "Shish." Meanwhile, at the dining table, Benjamin looked sideways at the room with the closed door. Orissa heard Jessie as well. Her heart racing, she attempted to divert Benjamin's attention with a question. "Mr. Graham, are you done with your meal?" Benjamin turned to look at her. Orissa was somewhat diffident as she met Benjamin's deep gaze. Not intending to let her slide, Benjamin countered with another question, "Is there anyone else in your house?" "Not at all. Why do you ask, Mr. Graham?" Orissa looked straight into his eyes, grinning. Benjamin narrowed his eyes. "I could have sworn I heard a child's voice just now." Orissa gulped nervously. Nevertheless, she forced a smile and said, "My children are not home, Mr. Graham. Perhaps it was one of the neighbor's kids. My place is not exactly soundproof, so sometimes you can hear them quite clearly." Benjamin shot her a glance and turned to his son, who was still enjoying dinner. Then, he wiped the corner of his mouth and voiced, "Take your time. I'll be waiting in the living room." Then, Benjamin got to his feet and made his way to the living room. At the same time, Orissa breathed a sigh of relief. "Mommy, you don't have to be scared of Daddy," Gavin uttered jokingly when he saw Orissa's change in demeanor. Orissa pinched Gavin's nose. "I'm not scared." She was just worried that Benjamin might find out about the kids. "Here, have another one of these." Orissa placed another piece of steak on Gavin's plate. "Mommy, I'm full. You can save this for the others." Gavin had already eaten a fair bit. At the thought of his starving siblings, he could not help feeling guilty. "That's all right. Eat up. I'll make some more for them later," Orissa whispered. At her words, Gavin flashed a smile before gulping down some more food. Meanwhile, Benjamin sat in the living room, gazing at the two rooms that were tightly shut. He shifted his gaze toward the duo who were having a great time at the dining table. Suddenly, an indescribable warm feeling arose in his heart, as if he was watching his wife and son having a meal together. While Orissa was not paying attention, Benjamin got to his feet, crossed the living room and promptly opened the door to the first room. It turned out to be Orissa's bedroom. He was instantly hit by the woman's familiar fragrance. He could not hold himself back from taking a few deep breaths of that sweet scent. Benjamin looked around and noticed that the room was decorated in pink hues and filled with a feminine charm. It seemed rather warm and cozy. "I didn't expect her to be so girly at heart." Chapter 108. Over at the dining table, Orissa, who was still eating with Gavin, turned around to check on Benjamin, only to find him standing in front of her bedroom. Her cheeks flushed crimson at once. "How could he enter my bedroom without my permission?" "Mr. Graham," Orissa called out to him. She could not let him invade her privacy. Benjamin turned to her, looking as composed as ever. He did not show a single shred of unease despite being caught red-handed. His handsome face remained calm as he explained, "I heard some noises coming from inside. I was just checking to see if there are any rats." Orissa was rendered speechless by the sensible excuse. "So, did you find any rats, Mr. Graham?" "No, perhaps it's in the other room. Let me go check." As he said that, he turned around and headed toward the other room. Orissa's heart almost leapt out of her chest. Hastily, she stormed over and blocked his way. "Mr. Graham, there are certainly no rats in my house. You must be hearing things." Benjamin did not expect her to do that. Unable to halt his tracks, he bumped straight into her. As a result, Orissa found herself pressed against the door. Flushing crimson, Orissa stretched out a hand in an attempt to push him away. Yet, Benjamin remained where he was. With a hand on the door, he boxed her in his embrace. Gavin turned around to sneak a glance and burst into a furtive giggle before resuming his dinner. "Are you afraid to let me in?" Benjamin lowered his gaze at her, looking unabashed as if he was the owner of this house. "Very funny. That's not it. It's rather messy in here, and I don't want you to see it." Orissa tried her hardest to suppress her nerves. It was difficult to keep a straight face, especially when she was in his arms. "Now that you mentioned it, I really think we should have a look in case of rats. They can be quite dangerous as they carry a variety of viruses. I don't think a woman like you can deal with them on your own." "It'll be best if you let me check," Benjamin said sternly. "Thanks for your offer, Mr. Graham, but I can handle it on my own." The corner of her mouth twitched nervously at the thought of Benjamin discovering the 4 children hiding inside. "Mr. Graham, this is my house." Raising her voice, Orissa reminded him that he was the guest here. Sensing the distress in her eyes, Benjamin's gaze flickered as he bent down and drew closer to her. The distance between them gradually diminished. Soon, they got so close that they could even see the pores on the other person's face. Benjamin's warm breath sprayed onto her face, giving rise to a suggestive atmosphere. Orissa picked up on the man's intense pheromones. Her heart raced uncontrollably as her ears flushed. She swallowed instinctively. "Mr. Graham, are you hiding something from me?" Just as Benjamin's lips almost touched hers, he came to a halt before questioning in a deep voice. With her back pressed against the door, Orissa smiled sheepishly. She lifted her eyes only to meet the man's enthralling gaze. She quickly looked away. "What could I be possibly hiding from you?" Benjamin's gaze remained fixed on her. At that moment, Orissa felt that her heart could almost leapt out of her chest. She pushed Benjamin again, but he did not even budge. The pair stayed rooted to the spot in a somewhat amorous position. Orissa swallowed nervously and asked, "Mr. Graham, will you get off me, please?" Benjamin stared at her flushed ears as his gaze darkened. Her sweet scent kept creeping into his nose, teasing the desire rising from the depth of his heart. Orissa could not read his thoughts at all. Whenever Benjamin was quiet, he always exuded a profound aura that managed to induce a sense of apprehension. Suddenly, Benjamin loosened his grip on her and said in a deep voice, "Get back to dinner." He turned around and headed toward the living room. In a bid to conceal his feelings, he sat with his back facing Orissa. Benjamin's eyes slightly narrowed as a hint of a flush washed over his face. Orissa glanced at Benjamin and his broad shoulders. It was some time later when she rejoined Gavin at the dining table. "Sweetheart, you go back with Daddy first, okay?" Bending over, Orissa gently coaxed the boy as she placed her hands on his shoulders. Gavin nodded. "Sure. Can I still visit tomorrow, Mommy?" "Of course. You can come over whenever you please, Gavin." Orissa held Gavin in her arms and kissed his delicate face. Chapter 109. Even though she was reluctant to part with Gavin, she felt guilty of making the other 4 kids starve if she were to let Benjamin and Gavin stay any longer. "Yes, Mommy, I like it here. I like you. I like my brothers," Gavin said. He muttered the last part rather softly. "Mommy likes you too." Orissa was overjoyed to hear him say that. She kissed him over and over again. As Benjamin watched them exchange goodbye kisses, he felt a pang of jealousy. Orissa ushered Gavin to the living room. She said to Benjamin, "Mr. Graham, Gavin's done with his meal." In other words, it was time for them to leave. Benjamin shot her and Gavin a glance before beckoning the latter over. "Come over here, Gavin." Gavin obediently complied. Orissa's gaze remained on her son as he approached Benjamin. Noticing her relentless gaze, Benjamin snorted inwardly at her doting attitude toward Gavin. "Do you like it here?" Benjamin asked Gavin. The boy's eyes lit up. He nodded fervently. "Yes. Then we shall stay for a little while longer." Benjamin patted Gavin's head and suggested. Orissa was taken aback. Benjamin's suggestion had put her in a tight spot, as it would seem impolite if she forced them to leave. "Gavin, have some fruits." Orissa had no choice but to sit next to Benjamin. She scooped Gavin up and had him sit on her lap as she offered him fruits. "Mommy, I want to stay here." Gavin clung to Orissa and pleaded. Holding him tightly in her arms, Orissa, more than anything, would love for him to stay longer too. Yet, she figured Benjamin would most probably not allow that. "Daddy, can I stay over? I don't want to go home. I want to spend a little bit longer with Mommy." Gavin pleaded. Benjamin looked at Gavin, then at Orissa. His handsome face was apathetic. When he spoke, it was in an authoritative tone. "Gavin, I can let you stay for a little bit longer, but you ought not cause trouble." Gavin pursed his lips at Benjamin's words. Sensing Gavin's disappointment, Orissa frowned slightly. "Mr. Graham, I'm glad Gavin likes it here. I don't mind if he stays over for the night. I can send him to school tomorrow." Benjamin gazed at her intently. "Why do you want him to stay over?" Orissa was stumped by his question. Benjamin did not know that Gavin was her son as well. As far as he knew, Gavin was his son, not hers. "Because I like him," Orissa promptly replied. "Do you just let anyone you like stay over?" Benjamin let out an unnoticeable snort. There was a hint of annoyance in his tone. Puzzled by Benjamin's reaction, Orissa opened her mouth in an attempt to refute. "Why not? Should I rather have people I hate stay over?" Orissa shot him a glance, only to notice that his expression was as gloomy as the night. He was glaring at her. "How dare you?" Gavin observed the two and let out a sigh. "Mommy, I think it's better for me to go home. I'll come over again tomorrow." "All right." Orissa gave him another hug and kissed him dotingly. Benjamin knitted his brows. He was upset by the fact that Orissa treated his son in such a tender manner but acted so disagreeably toward him as if he was her enemy. With that, he was no longer in the mood to discuss the matter regarding the kids with her. "Gavin, let's go." Getting to his feet, Benjamin beckoned his son over. Gavin was reluctant to part. Orissa tousled his hair gently. She carried him in her arms and approached Benjamin. "Don't forget to call me when you get home." "All right, Mommy." Orissa smiled as she bent down with Gavin still in her arms. She seated Gavin on her lap and helped him put his shoes on. Benjamin could tell that her patience and affection toward Gavin were genuine, unlike Donna, who behaved quite pretentiously toward the boy. Orissa genuinely wanted the best for him. He was her son by blood, after all. "Gavin, stand up," Benjamin chided. After putting on Gavin's shoes, Orissa finally set him down. "Bye, Mommy. Bye, sweetheart." Orissa leaned down and kissed Gavin goodbye for one last time. Gavin's cheeks reddened from both embarrassment and joy. Benjamin shot Gavin a glance before taking the boy's hand. "We're leaving now," he said to Orissa. "Drive safe, Mr. Graham." Orissa finally heaved a sigh of relief as she sent him off with a huge grin. Benjamin was rendered speechless by her eagerness to do so. Chapter 110. Benjamin noticed the cut on her forehead and stared at it for a moment. Then, he grabbed his son's hand and walked over. Orissa watched him in confusion and asked, "Mr. Graham, what's the matter?" In response, Benjamin grabbed her hand and led her into the room. "Go get the medical kit." Hearing that, Orissa felt puzzled and didn't know what Benjamin was up to. She glanced at him, then at Gavin. Meanwhile, Gavin also had no clue why Benjamin was staring at Orissa. "Are you hurt?" Orissa asked. Benjamin's face darkened, and he instructed, "Just go and get it." The corner of Orissa's lips twitched, but she quickly went to grab the medical kit. Unsmilingly, Benjamin opened it, pulled out the antiseptic, and soaked a cotton ball with it. Then, he stood in front of Orissa and tucked her hair behind her ear. Orissa froze. Is he going to treat my wound? The faint smell of mint on Benjamin's body made her heart race. Ouch! The sudden pain made her gasp. "Don't move," Benjamin ordered as he held her head still with one hand and roughly cleaned her wound with the other. His strength was much stronger than Gavin's. It hurt so much that Orissa started to tear up. Benjamin noticed the tears in her eyes from the corner of his eye, and he grinned devilishly. "Rubbing it will increase blood circulation and make it heal faster. Don't be so rough." "Stop, I'll do it myself." At that moment, Orissa felt like her skin was about to get peeled off. "If he continues to rub so hard, I'll get bruised. You got hurt on the way home, so it is considered a work injury. I have to make sure that you are taken care of," Benjamin said coldly. Upon hearing that, Orissa sneered. "What a smart mouth. It's none of your business. Let go of me. My skin is about to fall off." "Stop being so dramatic," Benjamin scoffed. The corner of Orissa's lips twitched again, and she cursed him under her breath. When Gavin saw Benjamin personally tend to Orissa's wound, he smiled from ear to ear. Then, he held Orissa's hand and comforted, "Mommy, just bear with it for a while. It'll be over soon. Your daddy is being very rough." It was so painful that Orissa started crying. Benjamin continued to rub her wound a dozen more times before he stopped. "All done. However, you will have to rub your wound again after you take your shower," Benjamin ordered before he left with Gavin. "Bye, Mommy," Gavin yelled as he smiled and waved at her. "Bye, sweetheart." Orissa sniffled in embarrassment as she said goodbye to Gavin. She accidentally met Benjamin's mocking gaze and was dumbfounded by his expression. "Such a crybaby," Benjamin murmured as he led Gavin into the elevator. Orissa glared at him furiously, slammed the door, and locked it from the inside. Then, she sniffled, wiped away her tears, and walked to the children's room. "Hey kids, you can come out now." The 4 children in the room immediately rushed to open the door. "Mommy, is Daddy gone?" The 4 children looked up at her with innocent eyes as they waited for her answer. Orissa hurriedly looked away in embarrassment and replied, "You didn't even see who the visitor was. Don't simply call anyone Daddy." It was obvious that she was still mad at Benjamin for what he did. She softly caressed her forehead, but it hurt so much that her lips twitched. "Ha ha." The 4 children chuckled and said, "Of course it's Daddy. Otherwise, why won't you let us meet him?" Orissa looked at the 4 smart children and felt speechless. "Are you hungry?" "Yes," the 4 children answered simultaneously. We are famished because we didn't eat much just now. Orissa hugged them for a moment before she said, they finished the food. I'll go cook something up for you. Wait for a moment. With that, she went to the kitchen and started cooking. Meanwhile, the four children ran to the restroom to grab water to wash away the urine on the balcony. When they went to the dining room and saw the empty plates, they were shocked. Shortly after, they noticed that there was some leftover soup. Zachary instantly turned to face the kitchen and yelled, Mommy, can we drink the soup? Of course, Orissa replied. Then, she washed some pasta and threw them in the pot.